The church was silent that morning. Father Michael knelt before the altar where the statue of the Virgin Mary stood with her arms open. He had served that community for 30 years. Every Mass, every confession, every prayer whispered in the darkness of that sacred place carried his devotion. But on that cold November morning 2 men entered through the heavy wooden doors. Their footsteps echoed against the stone floor. Their faces showed no reverence, no respect for the sacred space. If you want to see what happens next, make sure to subscribe, hit that like button and comment below with your city or country so I know where you're watching from. They walked straight toward Father Michael. The younger one grabbed him by his purple vestments, the liturgical color of penance and preparation. The older one laughed, a cruel sound that bounced off the vaulted ceiling. They began to mock him, to push him, to tear at his robes right there before the Virgin's statue. Father Michael did not fight back. He closed his eyes. His lips moved in silent prayer. The candles flickered around the altar. The morning light came through the stained glass windows, painting colors across the scene. Then something happened. Something that would change everything. The statue began to glow. A soft light at first, then brighter. The 2 men froze, their hands still gripping the priest's torn vestments. What they witnessed next would be talked about for generations. This is a story about faith tested in its darkest moment, about cruelty met with grace, about the mysterious ways divine protection can manifest when evil seems to have the upper hand. Father Michael Torres had dedicated his entire adult life to serving the Church of Our Lady of Miracles. The church stood in a small town where everyone knew everyone, where generations of families had been baptized, married, laid to rest. The building itself was over 200 years old. Its stones had witnessed countless prayers, countless tears, countless moments of hope and despair. The statue of the Virgin Mary was the church's most treasured possession. Hand-carved from white marble in the 18th century, she stood behind the main altar, her face serene, her hands outstretched in eternal welcome, her blue mantle painted with such skill that it seemed to flow in an invisible wind. Many in the town claimed the statue had been involved in miracles over the centuries. A sick child who recovered after prayers before her. A fire that stopped at the church walls during a terrible blaze that destroyed half the town. A soldier who came home from war when all thought he was lost. But many others dismissed these stories as superstition, as the desperate hopes of simple people looking for meaning in coincidence. Father Michael never argued either way. He simply served, simply prayed, simply believed. On this particular morning he had arrived early as he always did. The sun had barely risen. The town still slept. He prepared for morning Mass, lighting the candles, arranging the altar, putting on his vestments, the purple chasuble that marked the season. He knelt before the Virgin, as he had done thousands of times before, whispering his morning prayers, asking for strength to serve his flock one more day. He did not know that 2 men had been watching the church, waiting for this exact moment, waiting for him to be alone. Marcus and Tony pushed through the church doors with no care for silence. Their boots were loud against the ancient stones. Marcus was younger, tall and muscular with anger in his eyes. Tony was older, heavy-set with a face that had seen too many fights. They had not come to pray. They had come for revenge. 2 weeks earlier Father Michael had testified in court, a case involving Marcus. The priest had witnessed Marcus attacking an elderly man outside the church. He could not stay silent, could not pretend he had not seen. His testimony had helped convict Marcus, who now faced years in prison. But Marcus had made bail, and his first thought after leaving the courthouse was revenge. Tony was his uncle, a man who had taught Marcus that strength meant taking what you wanted, that respect was earned through fear, that the world belonged to those willing to take it. They had planned this for days, watching the priest's routine, knowing he came early, knowing he would be alone. When Father Michael heard their footsteps he turned from his prayers. He saw them coming down the aisle, saw the rage in their faces. He stood slowly, his old knees protesting. He was 72 years old, his body worn from decades of service, but his spirit remained unbroken. Marcus reached him first, grabbed him by the front of his vestments. The purple fabric bunched in his fists. "You think you can ruin my life, old man?" Father Michael looked into the young man's eyes, saw the pain beneath the anger, saw the lost boy beneath the criminal. "My son," he began, his voice calm, steady. "I am not your son." Marcus shoved him backward. Father Michael stumbled, caught himself against the altar. The candles wobbled but did not fall. Tony circled around, blocking any escape, though Father Michael had no intention of running. This is what you get for being a snitch. For thinking you're better than everyone. For hiding behind your collar and your God. Father Michael straightened his vestments. His hands were steady even as his heart raced. I testified to the truth. Nothing more. Nothing less. That man you hurt could have died. Marcus laughed. A bitter sound. And what do you think is going to happen to you now? Tony stepped closer. His breath heavy. His eyes cold. We could burn this place down. This old wooden building would go up like kindling. Or we could just deal with you. No one else is here. No one would know until it's too late. Father Michael turned his gaze to the statue of the Virgin Mary. She stood there as she had for centuries. Peaceful. Eternal. He felt a strange calm wash over him. If this is what you've come to do, he said quietly, then do it. But know that whatever you do to me will not change what you did. Will not erase your actions. Will not heal what is broken inside you. Marcus's face twisted with rage. You want to preach at me now? Here. Tony grabbed the priest's other arm. They both held him now. One on each side. Father Michael felt the strength in their grip. Felt how easily they could hurt him. But he also felt something else. A presence. A warmth. As if the very air around the altar had changed. Marcus yanked at the priest's vestments. The fabric tore. Buttons scattered across the floor. They pulled at his alb. The white garment beneath. Trying to strip him of his dignity. Trying to reduce him to nothing before the altar he served. Stop. Father Michael's voice was not loud, but it carried weight. They paused. Just for a moment. Look at yourselves. In this sacred place. Before the Mother of God. Is this who you want to be? Marcus spat on the floor. Near the altar steps. Don't talk to us about sacred. There's nothing sacred. No God watching. No punishment coming. Just us and you and what we decide to do. But even as he said it, something in the church had changed. The morning light through the window seemed brighter. The candles burned more intensely. The statue, the Virgin Mary with her outstretched hands and serene face, seemed to be watching them. Father Michael closed his eyes. His lips moved in prayer. Words too soft for them to hear. Marcus shook him roughly. What are you doing? Stop that. But the priest continued. His faith unshakable even in this moment. Even with his vestments torn. Even with these men's hands upon him. Even facing whatever they might do. He prayed. And the statue began to glow. At first it was so subtle they did not notice. A soft luminescence around the edges of the white marble. Like the morning sun catching the stone at just the right angle. But then it grew brighter. Tony was the first to see it. His grip on Father Michael's arm loosened. His eyes widened. What is that? Marcus was still focused on the priest. Still consumed by his rage. What are you talking about? Look at the statue. Marcus turned his head. And froze. The Virgin Mary was glowing. Not reflecting light. But emanating it. A soft white light that seemed to come from within the marble itself. Her face. Her hands. Her flowing mantle. All glowing with an otherworldly radiance. The light grew stronger. Filling the sanctuary. Pushing back every shadow. The candles on the altar seemed dim by comparison. The morning sun through the windows paled next to this light. Tony stumbled backward. His face drained of color. This isn't real. This isn't happening. Marcus still held Father Michael's vestments. But his grip had gone slack. His mouth hung open. His eyes reflected the growing light. Father Michael opened his eyes. Saw the light. Felt tears begin to roll down his weathered cheeks. He had served her for 30 years. Had prayed before this statue countless times. Had believed without needing proof. And now, in his darkest moment, she answered. The light pulsed gently. Like a heartbeat. Like breath. The air in the church grew warm. Not uncomfortably so. But like an embrace. Like safety. Like love. Marcus let go of the priest. Took a step back. His bravado crumbled. His anger replaced by fear. We need to leave. We need to get out of here. But Tony could not move. Could not tear his eyes away from the statue. The Virgin's face seemed to look directly at them. Her stone eyes somehow alive with compassion. With sorrow. With an infinite patience. The light grew even brighter. So bright they had to shield their eyes. Father Michael did not look away. Could not look away. The light did not hurt him. It warmed him. Filled him with a peace he had never known. I'm sorry. The words came from Tony. Broken. Desperate. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. He fell to his knees. Right there in front of the altar. His large frame shaking with sobs. Marcus stood frozen. His face a mask of terror and confusion. This can't be real. You did something. Some trick with the lights. Father Michael's voice was soft, gentle. Even now. No trick, my son. No illusion. Only grace. Only mercy. Only love responding to hate. The light began to shift, to take shape. Within the glow around the statue a form appeared. Translucent. Beautiful. Impossible. A woman. Draped in blue. Her face the same as the statue but alive. Her eyes seeing. Her presence overwhelming. Tony wept openly now. His hands pressed to the floor. His body prostrate in a posture of complete surrender. Marcus fell to his knees as well. Not from faith, but from sheer shock. From the weight of what he was seeing. From the reality that crashed through every belief he had held. Father Michael felt his legs give way. He knelt slowly, gratefully. His torn vestments forgotten. His physical pain meaningless. The vision extended her hands. The same gesture as the statue. Welcoming. Offering peace. No words were spoken. No voice echoed through the church. But somehow they all felt a message. A communication beyond language. That violence could be met with forgiveness. That hate could be transformed by love. That it was never too late to turn back. To choose differently. To become something better. Marcus found himself weeping. His shoulders shaking. The tough exterior he had spent years building crumbled in seconds. All the anger. All the pain. All the pride. Washed away by this impossible light. What do we do? His voice was small. Childlike. What do we do now? Father Michael reached out. Placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder. The same shoulder that had grabbed him moments before. You choose. You choose who you will be from this moment forward. The light began to fade gradually. Not disappearing all at once, but slowly receding like dawn turning to day. The translucent figure merged back into the statue. The glow diminished. The warmth remained. Within minutes the church looked as it always had. Morning light through stained glass. Candles burning on the altar. The Virgin Mary standing in white marble. Serene. Eternal. Her painted blue mantle just paint. Her face just stone. But everything had changed. Tony remained on the floor. His body still shaking with emotion. Marcus knelt with his head bowed. Tears dripping onto the ancient stones. Father Michael stood slowly. His old body protesting. But his spirit soaring. He adjusted his torn vestments as best he could. Picked up the scattered buttons. Began to restore some order to the altar. Are you going to call the police? Marcus's voice was hoarse from crying. Are you going to tell them we were here? Father Michael was quiet for a long moment. That is not my decision alone. You came here to hurt me. Perhaps to kill me. You violated this sacred space. Desecrated this altar. But you also witnessed something miraculous. Something that was meant for you as much as for me. So I ask you, what do you think should happen now? Tony pushed himself up from the floor. His face blotchy. His eyes red. He looked at the statue for a long time. Then at Father Michael. Then at his nephew. Marcus, he said. His voice rough with emotion. We have to make this right. Marcus nodded slowly. I know. I just don't know how. Father Michael moved to one of the pews. Sat down carefully. His body finally catching up to what had happened. The adrenaline fading. The reality of how close he had come to harm settling in. He gestured for them to sit. After a moment they did. Marcus and Tony sitting in the pew across the aisle. 3 men in a silent church. The morning light growing stronger through the windows. Let me tell you a story, Father Michael said. His voice tired but steady. When I was young. Younger than you, Marcus. I was not always a good person. I hurt people. Not physically perhaps. But with words. With indifference. With cruelty disguised as honesty. I thought I was better than others. Smarter. More worthy. Marcus looked up surprised. The priest smiled slightly. Me. I was arrogant. I was selfish. I used people and discarded them when they no longer served my purposes. He paused, remembering. Then something happened. Someone showed me kindness when I least deserved it. Someone forgave me when I had done nothing to earn forgiveness. Someone saw in me not what I was, but what I could become. And it changed everything. Tony leaned forward. Who was it? A priest, Father Michael said. An old Jesuit named Father Thomas. I had insulted him publicly. Had mocked his faith. Had made him the subject of ridicule among my college friends. And when I found myself in trouble, when I needed help and had nowhere else to turn, he was the one who came. He asked for nothing, demanded no apology, simply helped me. And when I finally broke down and said I was sorry, he told me that God's mercy was infinite, that no one was beyond redemption, that the only thing required was a willing heart. I entered seminary the following year. Father Michael looked at Marcus directly. I am not that old priest. I do not have his infinite patience, his perfect wisdom. But I learned from him that grace is not earned. It is given freely. The question is whether we accept it, whether we let it change us. Marcus wiped his eyes. You should hate me. I came here to hurt you. Maybe worse. I destroyed your vestments, desecrated your church. And then whatever that was happened. I don't deserve forgiveness. No, Father Michael agreed. You don't. None of us do. That's what makes it grace. Tony stood up suddenly, paced to the altar, looked up at the statue. I've done terrible things, he said. Not just today, but for years. I've hurt people, stolen, lied. I taught Marcus to be what he is. I'm responsible for all of it. And now, after what we just saw, I don't know how to live with what I've done. Father Michael rose as well, moved to stand beside Tony, the older man and the older man, both carrying the weight of their choices. You live with it, he said gently, by acknowledging it, by being honest about the harm you've caused, and by choosing differently from this moment forward. That's all any of us can do. Marcus joined them at the altar. The three men stood before the statue, before the altar where violence had been transformed into grace. What happens now? Father Michael asked again, this time not as a challenge, but as a genuine question. You tell us, Tony said. You're the priest. You know about these things. What do we do with this? With what we saw? Father Michael shook his head. I am just a man. What you saw was not from me. It was for you. Each of you must decide what it means, what you will do with it. Marcus looked at his torn vestments, looked at the scattered buttons on the floor. I need to turn myself in, he said slowly, the words painful but necessary. I can't run from what I did, from what I was convicted of. The judge gave me bail and I used it to plan revenge. That's not who I want to be anymore. Tony nodded. I'll go with you. I was part of this. I should face consequences too. Father Michael felt a mix of emotions. Relief, sadness, pride, hope. That takes courage, he said. Both of you. More courage than it took to come here this morning. They stood in silence for a moment. Then Marcus asked, will you pray for us? Father Michael smiled. I already have been. I never stopped. Even then. He placed a hand on each of their shoulders, bowed his head, and began to pray aloud, speaking words of protection, of guidance, of transformation. Words he had spoken countless times for countless people, but never with more feeling than this. When he finished, both men had tears in their eyes again. Can we help you clean up? Marcus asked. Your vestments, the buttons, the church. Father Michael nodded. We can do this together. They spent the next hour restoring order, picking up buttons, folding the torn vestments carefully. Tony proving surprisingly gentle as he helped arrange the altar. Marcus sweeping the floor where they had scuffled. When Father Michael's assistant arrived to prepare for morning mass, she found the three of them working together. She looked confused. Father, is everything all right? Father Michael smiled at her, his face tired but peaceful. Everything is fine, Margaret. Just fine. These two gentlemen were helping me with some early morning tasks. They're about to leave. But first, let me introduce you. This is Marcus and this is Tony. If they come back to visit, they are always welcome. Margaret looked uncertain, sensing something unusual had happened, but trusting the priest's judgment. Of course, she said. Anyone is welcome in God's house. After they left Marcus and Tony walking together toward the police station, Margaret turned to Father Michael. What really happened here? Father Michael looked at the statue of the Virgin Mary, at her serene face, her outstretched hands, her blue mantle. Something miraculous, he said softly. Something that reminded me why I believe, why I serve, why I never give up on anyone, no matter how lost they seem. Margaret followed his gaze, saw nothing unusual, just the statue as it always was. But she saw the look on Father Michael's face, and she believed that something extraordinary had occurred. News of that morning spread slowly through the town. Father Michael never told the full story, only that two men had come to the church, that they had been angry, that something had happened to change their hearts. Marcus and Tony both turned themselves in. Both received additional charges for what they had done that morning, but both also began to change. In prison, Marcus started attending chapel services, started reading, started helping other inmates learn to read. Tony began attending addiction meetings, started talking about his past honestly, started trying to make amends where he could. Father Michael visited them both regularly, Sometimes they talked about that morning, about what they had witnessed, about the light, the presence, the transformation. Other times they just talked, about life, about struggles, about hope. The statue of the Virgin Mary continued to stand behind the altar. No one else reported seeing it glow. No scientific explanation was ever sought. Some in the town believed the story. Others dismissed it as exaggeration. But those who knew Father Michael, who knew his character, who understood his honesty, they wondered, and sometimes late at night, when the church was empty, when the candles burned low, if you looked very carefully, you might see, or think you saw, or hope you saw, the faintest glow around that white marble statue. A reminder that grace is always present, that mercy is always available, that no darkness is so deep, that light cannot reach it.